Jasper's got a dance rehearsal thing going on. He's doing some dance show. It's going to be good fun, I think, hopefully. But he's got a rehearsal and I'm in a big rush. And today I want to talk about StarLink and the genius that is Elon Musk's latest business move. But we're going to have to pick this up a little bit later because Soph's going to be running back at the moment and I'm just basically stopped by the side of the road in a not particularly great place. Well, I've got to do something while Jasper's doing his rehearsing. Free power! I'm really loving the council around here at the moment. They've put in all these free chargers. Quite fantastic. Right, we're going to catch up with Soph and Jasper now. Such shocking weather. This is not working. I'm trying to hold it all. This is going to be in shot. I'm just going to hold the mic like a proper... Okay. Actually, it was quite a good thing that there's free power where we parked, because when I woke up this morning, despite the fact that I set the car to charge to 90% by 11:15, at 11:15 it was still only on 70%. So I don't really know what happened there, but it is worth bearing in mind that the depart by function is clearly not fully reliable. So yeah, there we go. Okay, I was going to talk about SpaceX in particular. Well, really StarLink actually, more than SpaceX. A couple of weeks ago at an investor meeting hosted by I think it was JP Morgan and Chase, Gwen Shotwell, the president of SpaceX, suggested that spinning out Starlink as a separate entity and then doing an initial public offering on that entity is something that they're seriously considering. It's something that they feel would be appropriate where maybe not so appropriate for SpaceX. And I've got some theories around all of this. Firstly, I do think it's a fantastically good idea for them, but also I can understand why they don't want to have the kind of scrutiny that goes along with making an initial public offering for SpaceX. You see, the problem is, I think SpaceX is pulling a bit of a fast one. They have set the price of their launches significantly above the cost for them to actually launch these rockets. And because their rockets are mostly reusable, certainly a lot more reusable than most people's rockets, nobody else really has a clear idea as to exactly how much money they're making. I mean, I reckon it costs them about 30 million to put a rocket up, all in. And I think they make about £30 million profit per launch, and there's no reason for them to sell cheaper launches because there isn't that much demand for people putting satellites in orbit. And that's where I think this IPO for Starlink comes in. By taking Starlink public and using the investment that comes from that, I've just realised the rain is landing right on my camera. Hang on a second. Yeah, it's because it was blowing the wrong way. We're going to have a beautiful wall in the background, but at least the rain won't be hitting the lens continuously. So by taking Starlink public, what they're going to do is obviously get quite a lot of money invested into Starlink. Starlink can then buy launches from SpaceX, which keeps the SpaceX launch roster nice and full. It's a way for him to get investors, average Joe kind of investors, to put money into building Starship and helping them launch rockets to Mars, but without actually having to hand over a significant proportion of the control of SpaceX to other people, and without having to submit SpaceX to the kind of scrutiny that goes along with being a PLC. I think it's probably a very savvy investment, because I think the idea of anyone on planet Earth being able to pay a certain amount of money and have pretty decent internet access, I think is an absolute game changer. And I'm not even talking about the advantages to traders that come from, shaving milliseconds off their transaction times. I mean, that literally is just like gold dust for these people. So I'm sure that the demand for Starlink is going to be significant. It's fascinating, and I think it's actually a bit of a business genius move on Elon Musk's part, which is something that he's got form for. He's been doing this sort of thing for a long time with SpaceX, with Tesla, with Solar City. You know, he's always moving his businesses around in his interests and trying to sort of find a way to convince the market to fund his dreams for changing the world. And I will definitely be trying to buy myself some shares in StarLink when that comes along. I think that one's going to be a very canny investment. I mean, who knows? As with any investment, it could equally just tank, but I don't think it will. I think the idea behind doing an IPO on StarLink is exactly the right idea to enable SpaceX to really push forwards with Starship, because it must cost a lot of money. I know they're using steel now and it's a lot cheaper, but still, it's gonna cost a fair whack cash to actually produce a massive, great, largest rocket ever created, most powerful rocket ever created, fully reusable. There's no way that's going to be cheap. They've made quite a lot of progress without having a substantial injection of cash, but I have also noticed that 2019 the launch cadence was considerably down on 2018, and there probably are various reasons for that. I think the commercial crew contract, whilst I think that was something that was very important for SpaceX to do because it was the first time they've ever launched people, it's still something which I think has taken quite a lot of the headspace that's available in that company, leaving less for the sort of more normal commercial Falcon 9 operations. And also, I'm just not sure that the launch demand is there in that way. How many satellites do average normal operators need to put up? I mean, this whole mega constellation thing is a brand new concept that has basically come out of the fact that they can make satellites like really cheaply now, and the launches aren't too expensive either, which is a big difference from the traditional geostationary communication satellites, which cost billions and have to last for like 10, 20 years, and it costs a lot more money to get them out to geostationary orbit, and then when they're there, they're a lot less useful because there's less of them, and the latency to get a signal all the way out to geostationary orbit and all the way back is quite significant, certainly very significant compared to low Earth orbit. Also, I just want to quickly mention, because this always comes up and I feel like I ought to say something about this, we don't really have to worry about space debris in low Earth orbit, not at the kind of orbits that Starlink's operating at. At about 500 kilometers, you fall back into the atmosphere in the space of about, I think it's somewhere between 5 and 10 years. Even if there's a massive, great chain reaction that destroys every satellite in low Earth orbit and it's totally impassable because of debris, that will be completely gone. All the debris will have fallen back into the atmosphere in the space of probably about 10 years. There may be a few little bits that got pushed into higher orbits and are taking longer to come down, but no, my point is, it's not the thousands of years that you hear in the scare stories. I believe it's now time for me to grab some lunch and have a nice pizza. Hello. 11 kilowatt power. How have we done? Oh yes. 65 extra miles. Yeah, there's that depart at thing. So that was set to 11 o'clock before, and yet at 11:15 when we came to leave, still only 70%. So yeah, I don't know why that didn't work, but tomorrow, I've given myself an extra couple of hours. You don't actually have to leave here tomorrow until about 11, 12-ish. So I've set it for 9 o'clock. So I'll check if it's charged. If it is, great. And if it isn't, then I'll make it charge. Yeah. At least the battery was properly warmed up though this morning. Okay, Starlink. Yeah, I think that's very exciting. What do you guys think? Will you buy shares in Starlink if they float it? Or do you think it's not going to be a great money spinner? Do you think it'll be a great money spinner for SpaceX? Which is what I think the real point is, to be honest. I think the whole thing behind Starlink is it's all about helping SpaceX to achieve its rather lofty goals. No pun intended. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye now because it's that time. I hope you've enjoyed today's vlog post. If you have, remember to like it, share it, and subscribe if you haven't already. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you don't already, and I will see you in the next episode of my vlog. Bye! Mucky wet cables, not my favourite thing. Alrighty.